Good evening, everybody, from the summit of Mount Washington. Up here on the summit today, it's a really beautiful evening, but before we jump into our current conditions, I actually wanted to share with you an event that we're having tomorrow at Tuckerman Brewing Company over in Conway. So that event is going to be to celebrate our Big Wind Day anniversary, and our Big Wind Day was our recorded 231 mile per hour wind gusts all the way back in 1934 in our original summit building. Here you can see the original stage office. Must have been quite the experience to experience that 231 mile per hour wind gusts in our original stage office. But we'll be celebrating the anniversary of that record-breaking event over at Tuckerman Brewing Company tomorrow from 3 to 6 p.m. So please join us there for fun and games, weather trivia, and more. But more about what's happening on the summit this evening. So on the summit this evening, we have a couple unique things going on. The first of which is that our wind speed is right around 12 miles per hour right now. So that 12 miles per hour is a very calm wind here, and it has been relatively calm for a couple of days now. And winds won't necessarily take the front seat in terms of weather we're seeing this weekend. However, they will pick up a little bit later in the weekend. But our temperature right now on the summit is right around 27 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been rising throughout the day, so it is pretty warm right now. And when you pair that wind chill, or when you pair those winds with that temperature, you get a wind chill value of 16 degrees Fahrenheit. So it feels like it's 16 degrees on the summit this evening. Another thing I'll point out on this current summit conditions page that I don't typically point out is our weather section. So our weather section is actually a code for a certain weather condition. And those METAR codes stand for different conditions. So that BCFG stands for patches of fog. So those patches of fog have been coming in and out for a couple of hours now. We've been in and out of the fog all day. And so during our last observation, our visibility from the summit was about 100 miles. But we can take a look at what it looks like right now on the observation deck camera. And it looks quite a bit lower right now, and that's because we're still under those patches of fog. But if we rewind it a bit to earlier this afternoon, you can see that there is quite an incredible undercast behind all of the patchy fog that we're experiencing. So we're in and out of the clouds this evening with relatively calm winds and pretty warm temperatures, not quite freezing, but it's a pretty calm evening on Mount Washington today. We can jump into kind of what those conditions are going to lead into as we finish out dealing with this low pressure system that's been hanging out to our south. So this surface map right here tells us a little bit about what's going on at the surface. And so those red L's stand for low pressure systems, low pressure meaning stormy weather, whereas those blue H's are for higher areas of higher pressure. And so you can see there's a nice area of lower pressure that's a little bit to our southwest. And as we move into this weekend, so this right here is Saturday morning. As we move into this weekend, you can see that low kind of shifting off of the Gulf of Maine. And as it does, it's going to bring with it one last bout of precipitation, one last surge of moisture with it as we move into the weekend. So you can see those different color shadings indicate different types and likelihoods of precipitation. And we can actually see that on this legend right here. So this legend right here is telling us that pretty widespread rain across most of New England. And centered around here, that dark blue, we're going to see some snow likely. And that purple is a mix, so quite a bit of a mix. And additionally, that last color, that pink color, is indicating where we're going to get potentially pockets of freezing rain. So you can see a couple pockets of freezing rain to our south. And again, this is at the surface, so this isn't necessarily telling us what's going on at the summit of Mount Washington higher up in the atmosphere, but this can give us a little bit of an idea of what's going on at the surface, what can New England expect this weekend. And as we progress forward through Saturday, you can see that mix of precipitation transitioning to quite a bit of rain as that low tracks off the Gulf of Maine. And then that precipitation, as we see that ridge or that high pressure building in afterwards, that rain sort of starts to clear out moving into Sunday into Monday. But let's take a closer look at that precipitation that we're going to see with this passing low. So starting Friday night, so starting tonight, you're going to see that area of precipitation that you saw on that surface map right here. A little bit of a different color scheme, but showing a similar area of precipitation. And that round of precip is going to move northward overnight, and this is moving into Saturday morning here. So Saturday morning, you can see a little bit of concentrated precipitation off the Gulf of Maine. But still quite a bit of green across New Hampshire here, and this is a map of the entire United States. So here we are in northern New Hampshire on the summit of Mount Washington. And we are going to get a bit of precipitation tonight and moving into tomorrow throughout the day. However, as we move into Saturday night into Sunday, you're going to see that precipitation start to clear out as that low shifts, departs the region finally, and that high pressure starts to build in a little bit. But let's zoom into New Hampshire here to take a look at where that when that precipitation is going to occur. So moving into Friday night, you're going to see that precipitation start to creep up into New Hampshire overnight. More of the southern regions starting out, but as it creeps northward and that low shifts northeast, we're going to see precipitation pretty widespread across New Hampshire. And this is hourly precip, so hourly quantities of precipitation, no matter the type. Moving into Saturday night, you're going to see that precipitation start to tail off or taper off. And then any of that lingering precipitation that you see will likely be enhanced by upslope enhancement this weekend, especially moving into Sunday morning when that lingering moisture still wants to squeeze out a little bit of precipitation at the higher elevations. But you can see that most of that precip is concentrated into the early morning hours of Sunday, and as we move into the rest of the day, you're not going to see a ton. You might see scattered showers, but most of that precipitation on Sunday at least is going to be confined to the morning hours. And I keep saying precipitation, but we can actually take a look at this map right here to tell us a little bit about what types we're going to see. So this map is our composite reflectivity map. So it uses radar reflectivity to indicate what kinds of precipitation we'll see. So again, we're starting into tonight, so Friday night. All right, and you can see that there is a bit of rain creeping up into Massachusetts there, and some snow up in southern New Hampshire. But as we move into Saturday, so this is late Saturday morning, we're going to see pretty widespread snow. However, there certainly look like there could be pockets of rain, especially at lower elevations, even a pocket of freezing rain right there. And moving into Saturday afternoon, you can see some pockets of sleet popping up as well. So certainly a mix of precipitation, at least at the lower elevations. But we can take a look in terms of totals right here. So precipitation totals by type. This little grid right here shows us precipitation totals by rain, freezing rain, snow, and ice accumulation. So let's take a look at what we're going to get this weekend. So you can see as that low starts to shift from our south to kind of northeast, that rain's going to start to kind of creep up into New Hampshire overnight. And you can even see areas of snow starting to develop across the state. And then we hit Saturday morning right here. And this is when we'll see most of our precipitation fall, mostly on Saturday. Well, let's see. We do see quite a bit of snowfall. The most concentrated amounts do seem to kind of miss us, but of course with that upslope enhancement, we are expecting some lighter snow accumulations this weekend. And then moving forward into, this is Saturday night. We do see some pockets of freezing rain popping up. The likelihood of freezing rain up here on the summit The warm front isn't looking particularly strong, so we will see a bit of warming, which would be what kind of causes that rain at higher elevations to then freeze as freezing rain down here at 6,288 feet. But there definitely still is the potential for some freezing rain this weekend. You can see some pockets of freezing rain, potentially in the notches surrounding Mount Washington, so right here, central-ish northern New Hampshire. And then this sleet down here in the bottom right, you can see some sleet accumulation. But if we take a look at temperatures, we can figure out a little bit what's going to go on during that transition period here on the summit of Mount Washington. So this temperature map shows us the freezing line. And moving into Friday night, you can see that New Hampshire right here, particularly the White Mountains, is under some pretty cold air, certainly below freezing. Now as we move into Saturday, it does look like here at our elevation in the atmosphere, right around 850 millibars, we're going to stay mostly below freezing. Oh. Back to the United States. So we will, it looks like, mostly stay below freezing here at 850 millibars this weekend. Moving into Saturday night now. You'll see a little bit of a warming trend Saturday night and into Sunday, and that's because as that low tracks into the Gulf of Maine, it's going to kind of want to circulate that warmer air or rotate that milder air inland. So we'll see a little bit of a warming trend. However, on Sunday, it doesn't look like we're going to quite reach freezing here at our elevation in the atmosphere. We will approach it, and certainly there will be pockets of warmer air kind of rotating inland. But it looks like more of a wintry mix for that lingering and scattered precipitation moving into later in the morning on Sunday and into the afternoon. And then lastly, I do have to include some winds. We are known for our winds up here on the summit of Mount Washington, even if they're not going to be nearly as extreme as our record-breaking 231 mile per hour wind gusts. But it certainly is notable, especially later in the weekend. So this wind map right here is showing us, I've zoomed out to New England just so we can kind of get an idea of how those winds are going to track that low as it tracks into the Gulf of Maine. So you can see some relatively calm winds. Those stronger winds kind of being a little bit more concentrated to our south. And these are wind speeds for our elevation in the atmosphere, which is around 850 millibars. And as we go into later on Saturday, we might see a little bit of a lull, a little bit of a decrease into a Saturday night. But then as that low, and that low again is tracking off of the Gulf of Maine, as that low tracks, it looks like it could increase winds a little bit later on Sunday, but those winds do seem to be placed a little bit further to our east. So it's looking like tropical storm force winds by the end of Sunday, potentially at least close to at this point in time. But again, all of these precipitation totals, these wind speeds kind of depend on where that low tracks and how far inland that low tracks. But let's take a look at kind of how I've synthesized this information into our higher summits forecast for this weekend. So I'll just highlight a couple of different things for these daily forecasts and these daily values right here. But overnight tonight, we'll get possible additional snow accumulations of a trace to 1 inch with relatively calm winds. Moving into Saturday, we may see a couple of inches of snow and sleet accumulations. Temperatures do seem to be tracking a little bit colder, and with that tracking a little bit further inland of that low, that could boost those totals a little bit, but still nothing too significant. And again, there is that potential for ice accumulations from freezing rain. And then moving into Saturday night, see another trace to 2 inches of snow and sleet accumulations with that wintry mix of snow and sleet and possible ice accumulations, again, of likely less than 1/10 of an inch from freezing rain. Then moving into Sunday, we'll see our temperatures rising to around 30 degrees, highs around 30 degrees. and mostly in the clouds with a chance of morning snow showers. So those morning snow showers are going to be concentrated before noon. However, any of that lingering precipitation, especially upslope precipitation here in the mountains, could fall as a wintry mix of snow and sleet. And again, those winds, the notable increase is going to take place Saturday night into Sunday with the passage of that low. And those winds are going to be relatively notable, at least compared to the calmer winds we've been experiencing the past couple days up here, uniquely enough. But that's all I have from the summit of Mount Washington for you for this weekend's forecast. Please send us any questions you might have. And I am certain that all of the staff who is off the mountain will be excited to see you at Tuckerman Brewing Company tomorrow from 3 to 6.